I am going to call the meeting to order. Please forgive me as this is the first time that I'm starting this meeting. So I will probably be making a couple of mistakes here. But our call to order, we will do public comment on, there was no public comment on closed session, so. Ugh, see? I'm on the wrong page. Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Approval of the agenda item.
Move approval?
Can I request, just for a second, that we pull 6C? I have 5 questions. Cash disbursements? That's it.
Move approval with that notation, pulling 6C out of the consent agenda.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Do I have a
second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. Okay, this is a general public comment. This portion of the meeting is reserved for members of the public to address the board on items within the jurisdiction of the Board of Trustees. If you wish to make public comments, please submit a speaker card to the clerk. In accordance with the Board Bylaw 9323, individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise stipulated. We have 3 public comments. So first up will be Cindy Santos and then Dulce Alfaro Solario.
Okay. Good evening, sorry. Okay, hold on. Good evening, school board members. My name is Cindy Santos, and I am the mother of a 14-year-old student who was placed on suspended expulsion contract last year. This experience has impacted his mental health and academic progress. The prolonged period of being out of school disrupted his learning and led to a noticeable decline in his well-being. During this time, my son fell behind in his studies and, without structure or guidance, struggled with feelings of isolation and depression. According to GUSD, when a student is recommended for expulsion, there is typically a waiting period about a month before a hearing is scheduled to determine the outcome. During this waiting period, students often find themselves without assigned coursework and communication without the school, student, and parent is unable to ensure academic flow. This lack of structure is concerning, not only for my family, but for other parents who have faced similar challenges. I would like to propose a solution. I strongly recommend that the district board require schools to provide students recommended for suspension and expulsion with appropriate assignments and clear instructions on how to complete them along with deadlines. This would allow students to continue their education during the waiting period and prevent further academic setbacks. I urge you to take these concerns seriously and take action to ensure the students in similar situations are supported and given every opportunity to stay on track academically. Our children's well-being and education should always be a top priority. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter.
Dolce, and then Jeff Aguirre afterwards.
Buenas noches, miembros de la Junta Directiva. Mi nombre es Dulce Alfaro Solorio y estoy aquí para compartir una preocupación con respecto a la falta de documentos. Sí, por favor.
Restart the clock, please. Gracias. Good
De la
evening,
Junta Directiva.
members of the school board.
Mi nombre es Dulce
My name
Alfaro
is
Solorio.
Dulce Alfaro Solorio,
Estoy aquí
and
hoy
I'm
para
here today
compartir
to
una
share with you
preocupación
a worry
con respecto a
in
la
regards
falta de
to
documentos
the lack of
traducidos
documentation that's been
por
translated
los padres al
on
firmar
behalf of the parents
formularios
to filling
relacionados
out
con las
forms
políticas escolares.
related to school-related matters.
Específicamente me
Specifically,
gustaría abordar una
I would like to
situación que
address a
involucra
matter
a
that
mi hija,
involves my daughter
quien fue
that
suspendida
was
por 5
suspended
días
for
el año
5 days
pasado
last year
después de una pelea
after
con
a
otra
fight with
estudiante.
another student.
La otra estudiante
The other
involucrada
student
en el
involved
incidente
in the incident
recibió una
received a
suspensión más
suspension
corta.
less
Cuando pregunté por qué la
than
suspensión de
my
la otra
daughter's.
estudiante
When I
era
asked
menos
about this
severa,
and
la
why it was
respuesta que
so less
recibí
severe,
fue
the
que
response
había
that I received
aceptado
was
las
that
pautas de
she had
suspensión
respected
durante el
and
proceso
received
de
the
inscripción.
instructions during
Sin embargo,
enrollment.
si los documentos
However,
proporcionados en el
without the
momento de la
provided
inscripción
documents
se
that
hubieran
were requested,
traducido
if they were requested and translated
a mi lenguaje,
to
el
my
español,
language,
habría
Spanish,
tenido una
then
comprensión
I would have
más
had a
clara
comprehension
de
more
las
clearly
políticas y no habría
of the
aceptado términos
politics and policies
que no
therein,
comprendía
which I
completamente.
didn't understand at the moment that I was
Para
being subject to.
prevenir tales problemas en
To
el
avoid
futuro,
such matters and complications in the future,
recomiendo que el
I
distrito
recommend that the
escolar
district
se
office
asegure de que todos los
assures that
documentos
all the
proporcionados
documents
a los
provided to
padres
parents
se traduzcan
be
en su idioma
translated in their
preferido.
respective language.
Esto permite a los
This
padres
allows
tomar
for parents
decisiones
to take effective
informadas
decisions that are
y
informed
comprender
and to
completamente
better
lo que se les
understand
pide
exactly
que
what is being
firmen.
asked of them when they are being asked to sign.
Además, creo que es
Furthermore, I
importante
do believe that it's
que las
important
pautas de
that the
suspensión
policies of
sean
suspension
conscientes
be
y
mindful
equitativas,
and equitable,
particularmente en
particularly in
situaciones que
situations
involucran
that involve
acciones disciplinarias
disciplinary
como
actions
peleas
such
para
as
que todos los
fights,
estudiantes
so as all
involucrados sean
students involved
tratados de manera
be
justa.
treated equally and
Además,
justly.
animo a la
Furthermore,
administración
I
a que se
also encourage
comunique de manera
the administration to communicate
proactiva con
in a
los padres
proactive way with the
con
parents
respecto a
in
cualquier
respect to whatever
circunstancia que
circumstances
pueda afectar el
that is
regreso
and
de sus
are
hijos a la
involving and
escuela
impacting the
después de
students, especially
una
upon their
situación.
return to school
Agradezco
after a
su
situation.
tiempo
I appreciate your time
y
and,
perdón,
excuse me,
agradezco su
I
tiempo
appreciate
y
your time and
consideración y
consideration.
espero
And I
sinceramente que
sincerely
veamos
hope
acciones
that we see
significativas
some significant
sobre
change
estos asuntos
regarding these
en el
matters
futuro.
in the future.
Por su atención y
Thank you very
tiempo.
much for your time
Gracias.
and attention.
Thank you. Next is Jeff Aguirre.
Good evening, Dr. Munshi and trustees. My name is Jeff Aguirre. Most of you know me from my better half, who was not long ago on your side of the table. I have also been either a paid or volunteer coach in this district for nearly 10 years, most of those years at Christopher High School. I'm here this evening to share my concern about the current state of the Gilroy High School baseball field. Just a handful of years ago, a previous coach generously donated time, money, materials to completely redo the infield grass at GHS. It was one of the nicest fields in the whole South Bay area. There was then a lapse in maintenance and care until recently. Once current coach, Mr. Brian Collum, alumni at Gilroy High, current PE teacher, he took over the GHS baseball program. He instantly took pride in getting the yard, as he calls it, back to being one of the best in the area. And last season it was. Those seniors got to experience their home games on one of the best fields in the area. Even as recent as this fall, the infield grass was in great shape. From the information that I have received, there was an unfortunate water leak on another area of campus, which prompted maintenance or grounds crew to shut off the water supply. Unfortunately, the baseball field did not receive water for multiple weeks, most of that over Christmas break, causing much of the grass to die and allowing some of the more resilient crabgrass to take over. My understanding is there was a plan put in place to resod the infield. Principal Berggren, Athletic Director Mr. Adams were aware of this plan. The dead grass was removed, but no other action has been taken in recent weeks. My concern is the infield will not be ready in time for Gilroy Highs to host their first home game on February 24th. Last year's seniors, as I mentioned, got to play on one of the best fields in the area. This year's seniors do not have an infield to play on as I stand before you tonight. My hope is that this prompts some action and that these seniors get to host their home games as planned, just like their crosstown peers at Christopher High School. I know that our grounds crew and maintenance crew work hard, and there's lots of projects and things that go on the agenda and things that take their time. I understand that part of it, but to sit there and see it be stagnant for weeks now is a little frustrating. My two boys also are baseball players. I'm not from Gilroy, so I don't have the affiliation and tie to Gilroy High. My affiliation is more to Christopher High because I started coaching here the year that Christopher High opened, right when I moved to town. And I still help out at Christopher High. But to see people in the community, friends of mine that I know that take pride in that field, sit there and not be able to use the field. Their first official practice is February 3rd, which is quickly approaching. And as of now, they will not be able to set foot on that field. Again, I hope this just prompts some action and gets, I know there's lots to it, rototilling, leveling, topsoil, sod. So there's a lot of steps. And then that grass needs to be stayed off of for a
Please
few
wrap it up.
weeks.
Thank you.
So I just, again, hope that it prompts some action and that grass is there for those seniors to play their home games in a few short weeks. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is report of action taken in closed session. The first item is the removal, suspension, expulsion, case number 2025-20. Do I have a motion?
Move to expel.
I second.
Let's have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Do I have another motion?
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the expulsion following the recommendation of the panel.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All not in favor? Any not in favor? Not in favor.
I am not in favor as well.
Okay, motion passes to suspend the expulsion. Case number 2025-22. Do I have a motion?
Move for expulsion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Motion, do I have a second motion?
Move for suspended expulsion.
And I'll second that.
And all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes to suspend the expulsion. Under agenda item 2A, the board voted to accept the resignation of a certificated employee and approved a related settlement agreement. The motion passed 7-0 with trustees Del Bono, Kim, Fayak, Moreno, Nelson, Paceno, and Yi Baker voting yes. And the board also voted to non-reelect one certificated employee. The motion passed 7-0 with trustees Del Bono, Kim, Fayak, Moreno, Nelson, Paceno, and Yi Baker voting yes. And that is the end of the closed session reports. Next is the Student Board Representative Report from Monreat Core from Dr. T.J. Owens, GECA Academy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Manreet. I'm the student board representative from GECA. And tonight I'm just going to give you a brief presentation on the events that have been occurring at both GECA and Glenview Elementary. So to start off, in October, GECA held their monthly Spirit Week. And in October, we had more of a fall/Halloween theme for students who celebrate. The flyer is shown on the slide. And then also at GECA on Halloween Day, if students choose to, they can wear their costumes to school, and quite a few students did. You see that the teachers dressed up together, and there are other students dressed up as well. And then here are just some events that have been going on at GECA. One event that we take a lot of pride in is our middle school presentation. So as many of you know, GECA is an institution that you have to apply to when you are in 8th grade. So in order to make sure that all the middle schools in our district are informed about how to undergo that application process, members of ASB actually go to middle schools and present to them on how to apply. And Ms. Bennett and our counselor is there with us as well. And so we presented to 4 middle schools. But obviously GECA does also take students from outside GUSD. So we also held a virtual Zoom night for any students and parents from outside of GUSD who wanted to join in on that presentation as well. And then another biannual event that we have is the Week of Kindness. So our Student Justice Course Tribunal holds this every single semester, where students get to create little paper bags and put them around the cafeteria, and their friends and peers can go and drop little notes in their bags just to say thank you for any acts of kindness they've done. I personally make little origami hearts and drop them in every single student's bag. And students can also leave notes in staff members' bags if they want to acknowledge any act of kindness that a staff member has done for them. And then another annual competition that we have is called Poetry Out Loud. It takes place at the end of every single semester. And in December, a lot of students competed, and we were able to send 3 to the competition at the site level, which was really exciting to see. And then another annual event that we have at GECA is called our October Dance. We hold it usually in the last or second to last week of every October, and it's held, it's run by our sophomore class. This year they decided to call it the Neon Nightmare. The flyer is posted there, and you can see my friends on the right side of the screen who dressed up as Alvin and the Chipmunks. And then you also see some other things that were going on in the GECA NPR where it was held. It was really fun. We had dinner, dessert, and also a DJ. And then here are some fundraisers that were going on at GECA this last semester. So the sophomore class last December, they held a fundraiser selling candy and ornaments around the holiday period. And they raised just over $100 for their class budget, which then they can use for their funds their senior year, where they choose to put it towards their senior trip or buy senior hoodies, things like that. And then the junior class also held a C's Candies fundraiser. And they raised over $600 with that fundraiser, and it was really successful. And then here are some resources that we have for students at GECA. Being such an academically rigorous institution, we have a lot of resources for students to both excel at GECA and beyond. One thing that we've been implementing in recent years are things called community circles, where in students' ACA prep classes, they can stand up and get in a circle and talk about things that have been stressing them or things that they want to bring up to their teachers. And these are typically led by Tribunal as well. And then GECA does take a lot of action in preparing their students for college or whatever career path they choose after high school. And last October, our ACA prep teacher, Mr. Chin, was able to reach out to CSU Monterey Bay and UC San Diego and invite them to come give some college presentations to our students. I was at both of them. They were really fun and really informative. I applied to CSU Monterey Bay not knowing that it was a school that I might actually want to go to, but after that presentation, I knew that I saw a future for myself there. And then you see on the right side of the screen, I listed some resources that we have at Gavilan College, such as our Career and Transfer Center, which is really useful for us GECA students, because the whole process of navigating like graduating from both Gavilan College and GECA can be a little bit confusing. My sister is actually in that photo right there. And there's also other opportunities like work opportunities. I work in a few different departments at Gav. There's also clubs. I'm in one. I'm a secretary. And then there are also some internships and other things like the scenery, the nature is really nice, and things like that. And then here are some opportunities that we have coming up. So actually next Saturday, we're holding our annual winter formal. It's going to be in San Jose at the Silver Creek Valley Country Club. And then we also have freshman interviews coming up at GECA. So after the application process to get into GECA, you also have to undergo an interview process. Those are going to be happening in person in the GECA cafeteria. There are going to be interview panels, which a student will sit on. And on those interview panels will typically be a GECA alumni, a staff member, and then also a student government member. So they talk to the student, get to know them to better build an understanding of the student and if they would be a good fit at GECA. And then also, ASB is going to be holding our annual Valentine's Grant fundraiser, and we're going to be distributing all of those the day before Valentine's Day on February 13th. And then also in March is a very daunting month for seniors because we actually start our senior petitions at Gavilan College to graduate. So I say daunting because I'm going to be doing it in just 2 months, but we have a really good support system behind us. Our academic counselor, Ms. Montero, she's there to support us every single step of the way because we're not just graduating from high school, we're graduating from Gavilan College too. And then another annual thing that we do is our career day. That's going to be happening on March 31st, where our staff members organize for professionals from different careers to come down and talk to us, which is great because you're not supposed to have it all figured out in high school. And so this gives students a way to see into different professions and see what they might see themselves doing in college and outside of college. So that's all for GECA, and I'll also be presenting on Glenview Elementary School. So here are some events that have been happening at Glenview. One thing I noticed while I was making this presentation is that Glenview prides itself on not just instilling academic skills into their students, but also practical life skills. So for instance, they held a drawing assembly where students were able to practice their drawing skills and their mobile dexterity skills, which is great to see. And then they also held a harvest festival for their TK students. And you can see students dressed up there. And then they were also able to invite a hardware company down, Lowe's, to host a garden event with the students, and they were taught how to paint a bunch of benches and also build and plant inside planter boxes, which is great because in school you don't just learn academic skills, you learn everything else in between. And that's what empowers students, not just in elementary school, but beyond too. And I also noticed that Glenview sends their students on a lot of cool field trips. One stuck out to me in particular. They sent their first and second graders to Gavilan College. I know a thing or two about Gav. I've been there a few times. And so I hope they had a bunch of fun there. There's tons of cool like nature paths to walk on and a lot of cool little statues and things. The gift shop is also pretty cute, so I hope that they had a little bit of fun there. And then they also sent their second graders to Swank Farms. I'm sure they had a great fun there. And then they sent their fourth graders to San Juan Bautista. One of my core memories in elementary school was actually going there as well, so I'm sure they had an absolute blast. And then here are some events that are coming up for Glenview. So on January 8th, they have their regular parent club meeting. And then January 10th, they have their crazy sock day. They have spirit days like that all the time where students get to dress up and have some fun at school. That's just one of them coming up. And then they're also going to be having their monthly awards assembly where students are recognized for showing character counts. And then February 5th will be their 100th day at school. We don't celebrate that anymore where I go to school, but I remember in elementary school celebrating it and making those little paper crowns, so that'll be great for them. And then February 24th will also be Read Across America Day, where students will learn more about the books in their everyday classrooms and what weight they hold in their classrooms. So that is it for my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that gave everyone some insight onto what GECA and Glenview are up to today.
Thank you, Manrit, for that excellent presentation. So next up is the superintendent's report.
Thank you. And I've always maintained that it is really hard to follow our students. I think we need to change the order of our reports because it's a hard act to follow. Great job, Manrit. I would like to start my report tonight with a recognition. On behalf of the Gilroy Unified School District community, I would like to thank our Board of Trustees. January is School Board Recognition Month, and we are celebrating our board for their tireless efforts as champions for our students and for our families. School boards play a crucial and often overlooked role in the support of students and families. GUSD is proud to observe School Board Recognition Month in acknowledgement of the selfless service of our school board members who aim to provide a better, safer, more welcoming learning environment for students in our community each and every day. Thank you, trustees, for your outstanding work in serving our youth. And thank you. Please join me. It is hard work. I just reading those binders. I mean, I know. Your weightlifting is good too. All right. So we've only been back for 2 weeks, and in these 2 weeks, December 23rd through January 5th, as you know, we had our holiday break, no school for students. On January 8th, we had our new trustee orientation. On January 9th, I met with our principals. I have a monthly meeting with them. On January 9th, we also provided training for our principals, as well as our office staff on how they can support immigrant families in our community. In the morning, our legal counsel trained our principals and provided some guidance and direction. And in the afternoon, we had almost 100 or maybe a little over 100 office staff from all our schools attend a session. Again, just what to expect, and how to answer, to any queries that they come across. On January 10th, coffee with the superintendent. And then on the 13th, I met with Ms. Flores, and I met with Youth and Philanthropy and the Gilroy High School administration. You have heard from Mr. Tomasello and the Youth and Philanthropy chairs for this year on the program, which currently is running in all 3 middle schools. They had brought forward a proposal for having a pilot this year at Gilroy High. So we had our first meeting with Gilroy High staff. The counselors and the team over there, they will come up with a plan of what it might look like at a high school because it will be a different model. And then Ms. Flores and I will meet with them again to see when it can be implemented and how we can roll it out successfully. And once the pilot is successful, we can then implement it at all the other high schools as well. On the 13th, we had our SPAC meeting. I know 2 of you joined me for that. On the 15th, I attended the South County Youth Task Force meeting with Trustee Fayak. And then in the last 2 weeks, I have been able to visit, I think I've shared with the board that we have our spring and fall visits, but anytime I have even half an hour, I jump in the car and I just go visit a school site. And the last 2 weeks, I've been able to visit Gilroy High School, Mount Madonna High School, Glenview Elementary, and El Roble Elementary. Actually, I got to go to the library with a bunch of kindergartners today because they insisted I go with them, and I had to sit in a little chair and listen to a story. So that was a lot of fun. Upcoming events. On Monday, January 20th, Martin Luther King holiday, no school for students. On the 24th, next Friday, we have Staff Development Day. Again, no school for students. And then I had shared with you at the last meeting also that at the end of January and February, I will be attending the Access Superintendent Symposium and also the Capitol Conference. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Munshi. Next up is our consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and are acted on by the Board of Trustees in one motion. There's no discussion of these items prior to the board vote unless a member of the board or staff requests specific items to be considered and discussed separately and are removed. It is understood that the administration recommends approval of all consent items. Each item on the consent agenda approved by the Board of Trustees shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 6A through K with the exception of C?
All motion to accept.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so motion passes, and now we're going to go on to consent agenda item 6C. There were some questions.
Yes, I had some questions about some of the warrants. What is the retirement in lieu of OASDI?
Hi. So
Hi.
that is a PARS retirement system. It's another one instead of STRS or PERS. It's the Public Agency Retirement System, and that's basically for employees that are under a 0.5 FTE or a substitute classified employee. The
Okay.
payment to the entity.
Okay. We approved hiring the California Consulting Company Incorporated in May of 2024. It's a grant writing organization. Can we get an update on what projects have been approved or in the pipeline and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely, Trustee. Nelson will do a Sunday report if that's acceptable with a full rundown of the pending ones, those that have been approved. Because we have some pending ones that are pretty large, a couple $1 million at a couple of sites.
Okay, so the 59,400 was well
It's
worth it.
absolutely worth
Okay.
it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had a question about, I think it's an employee, Crystal Hernandez, it says other on page 14.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. Permit fees on page 16 and also on page 38. Do we have some kind of reciprocal agreement with the city?
So we have state and that's state fire marshal mandated inspections on an annual basis.
Oh, okay. And page 22, Heather Morris, it's computer stuff. That was it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm done.
Do I have a motion to approve item 6C?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, now we are on to item 7A, public hearing. Public hearing on the Gilroy Unified School District's initial proposal to the Gilroy Federation of Paraeducators, AFT Local 1921, for successor reopeners for the 2024-2025 school year. And Dr. Paul Winslow will present the Gilroy Unified School District successor contract negotiation proposal for the 2024-2025 school year with GFP.
Thank you, President Fiak. And if you can do me the honor and use the power of your gavel to open up the public hearing for this item. Thank you so much. President Fiak, members of the board, Superintendent Munshi, I am here to present during this public hearing the district's opening under Government Code Section 3547, our public announcement to open negotiations with the Gilroy Federation of Paraeducators. In the documents in front of you and for the public are some of the articles that we are planning to open. At the previous board meeting, the GFP did the exact same thing. So after action item 8A, that will start formal negotiations with the Gilroy Federation of Paraeducators.
Seeing no public comment, I will close the hearing.
Thank you.
And then we are on to item 8A, approval of the Gilroy Unified School District initial proposal to the GFP AFT Local 1921 for reopeners for the 2024-2025. And Dr. Paul Winslow.
Thank you, President Fiak. As mentioned during the public hearing, we're here to present to the school board and the Board of Trustees our proposal to open up negotiations with the Gilroy Federation of Paraeducators. So we're requesting the board tonight to please approve our proposal as is so we can begin bargaining.
Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
Well, two. I just wanted, I already emailed everybody, but I want it for the record. It's interesting that probationary period for the paras is 6 months, so you can release somebody within that time frame. The probationary period for certificated people, for teachers, is 2 years. It's actually, we have to notify them by March 15th. So I just thought that was very interesting. The second thing is the evaluation itself. The current contract language, the evaluator will ask for input from each teacher with whom the para educator works, if in fact the para is working with the teacher. And for other classifications, the evaluator will ask for input from appropriate personnel. The evaluator will integrate this information into the written evaluation form. I was never asked in my entire career for information about any of the paras with whom I worked. So I'm glad this is going to be done. I'm hoping to see that it's done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve? A second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item 7B, update, I'm sorry, 8B, update on the governor's January proposal for the 2025-26 state budget. This is an information item. Mr. Mesa.
Good evening, board. Good evening, superintendent and members of the public. This is an annual process in which go into on the update of the governor's January proposal, which was just released 6 days ago by the director of the Department of Finance, which we'll get into in a minute. The topics I'll cover just broad strokes of the budget proposal, and then giving you a preview of the elements on one single slide. Remember, this is just the start of the budget development process. It is a process, and it is just the start. And so here you have Joe Stephanshaw, I believe, Director of the Department of Finance, releasing the proposal on behalf of the governor, as the governor was, of course, attending to the Los Angeles fires that day. Again, we're here in this checkpoint. I'm trying to highlight it, where it's just the start of the 25-26 development process. And right now, we're in the middle of the negotiations between the governor and the legislative body before it gets revised in May with the May revision. It is those assumptions that will be released in the May revised that we then take in GUSD, build our 25-26 budget and move forward. The Department of Finance director, and no doubt the governor would have also highlighted the volatility in the share of personal gains realization as a share of personal income taxes. Because remember, the big three are personal income taxes, use tax, and corporate taxes. So the point of this graph is the peak in the chart is then followed by recessionary periods most of the time. Obviously, the challenge is identify the peak. We could have pinned down a recession if this was a predictor at any given point. The takeaway here is the volatility of the realizations in capital gains. Anytime they exceed 5% and get historically high, over 11%, we tend to worry because of the volatility. And that means the top 1% income earners pay roughly half of those big three taxes. And so that's what we care about the stock market, not because Prop 98 is exactly linked to it, but it is correlated to those gains because of those top 1% income earners. Now, getting into the interesting area, Prop 98 is a calculation of test one, test two, test three, basically is just math. And it should spit out a number. The number that was calculated based on test one, which is the governing, basically a form of the model calculation, leads to a total Prop 98 number of $119.2 billion next year, right? That should be the amount. The governor is saying, and he can get away with this right now because it's the January proposal. It is a draft. The numbers do change. But he's intentionally already lowering that calculation to about $2 billion, or a little less than that. So he's saying it's about 117.6 billion that he's anticipating Prop 98 to be in May. And he also puts out a caveat that in May it'll get recalculated anyway. The danger here, because this is unprecedented, the calculation is whatever the calculation is, has been in the past ever since Prop 98. And then it gets suspended if the state doesn't then meet its obligation. But this is playing with fire, I believe, because it's lowering the guarantee, which should be a minimum to begin with. And then they can still suspend it if they don't have the resources to pay it anyway. So that strategy may be legally challenged anyway. And the legislature might say, I don't agree with you, Governor, go back and recalculate the Prop 98. So that's why it's important to recognize that this is just a proposal. It's not the final budget. And it may likely and will probably likely be very different by the May revision. But that's important to us because the governor is signaling that he learned his lesson. I think last year with the delay of the tax collections in 2022, 2023, he got burned. He overestimated Prop 98. And again, because it's a guarantee, he then couldn't take it away at the end of the year. And he over allocated, in their view, by about $8 billion. So I think that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to not make that mistake again. Again, this is January. He could probably get away with it. And because this was developing fast and furious on that Friday, and my board items are also due that day, there was a little bit back and forth. Does this mean a cut to the current year? Because the current year Prop 98 value this year, remember, we're talking about this year, is 115.3 billion. And so because Prop 98 gets recalculated for last year, this current year, and next year, that matters. So in May, he'll basically true up this number for whatever it would be. If it would be over 115.3 billion, fantastic, we get additional resources. If it's less, he might have to then take it from next year's allocation. He's gonna get it one way or another if it's a decrease. But it's dangerous ground to something that we're paying attention to. This is the single most important slide because it has all the various elements in one single slide. I did that purposely because again, it's a proposal. It's not, all this can change by the time we get to the May revision. Point of emphasis is the COLA here. That 2.93 was the Department of Finance last provided number by his department. The LAO, the Legislative Analyst's Office, has already said and signaled to us, and you heard me say in December with the first interim, that it was closer to 2.46. So we knew it was not going to be 2.93. We had embedded in first interim a 2.46 as a top-end COLA. Then we budgeted just shy of 2% for that. So we're still budgeting just shy of 2% for the COLA at 80% of whatever the value is right now. That value just dropped slightly even further to 2.43% COLA. That's the cost of living adjustment increase, of course, proposed for next fiscal year. That will get set in stone in May and released as part of the May revision. Something new that's exciting, of course, it's one-time allocation. We would love it if it was ongoing, but we'll take it if we can get it. It's $1.8 billion at the state in one-time funding. earmarked towards the rising unspecified costs, so that makes it truly discretionary, board's discretion. But then he also provides some kind of suggested or parameters around focusing on professional development for teachers in English language arts, English language development, math frameworks, et cetera. I won't read the entire content of the slide, but those are focus areas, but it doesn't limit the board for anything else. So anything that's a board priority, should this still be in place in May? Should it be enacted budget? Should the language not change? Then it's truly discretionary with some suggested expenses that are listed there. Also, a big focus is on literacy intervention and investments in literacy. Just over $500 million in that bucket. And then a continued investment in the expanded learning opportunities program. It's by far the single largest, I will call it categorical, that the state has, is $4 billion this year. It grows to $4.4 billion. And I think most relevant to us is currently districts like Salinas City Elementary and others that are high on duplicated count, like over 80%, get additional funding. So his proposal is to lower that so that the UPP is lowered to 55%, effectively meeting the same concentration threshold in LCFF. That would mean, because we hit almost 62% this year, that we would receive additional funding. So that's an exciting proposal. I think it's a reflection from the state and the governor looking at districts like us that are successfully using ELOP funds and thriving and serving the community that way, versus other places, they're still struggling to get their programs up and running. So good job, Mandy, and good job, team. And then this piece is, I think Kimberly may mention this later, but there is no cash deferral. That means an IOU payment basically from the state as part of the 25-26 budget. Currently, we do have a cash deferral this year, although it is small. A cash deferral is basically a delayed payment. So if the state owes us money for 24-25, the June apportionment will get shortened or shortchanged by 246 million at the state level. Basically, we don't get our entire apportionment in June. It gets pushed off to July. The state recognizes it from a budget perspective as a savings. We book a receivable. The auditors argue about it with the state. They don't argue with us. And everybody calls it even. Ultimately, anytime you see a deferral is the first indicator that the state is having financial problems because they can't meet their fiscal year obligations within the fiscal year. They push off that obligation to a different fiscal year, and that's a red flag automatically. In the past, that number has been billions. So it's time to tune into that. But luckily, the state's recognizing additional revenue, $16.5 billion surplus, most of that which is going to the state rainy day fund. And did I not put that in there? It's a key element in the proposal that he's proposing to increase the rainy day fund, doubling it from 10% to 20%. So that's the state rainy day fund, not the Prop 98 rainy day fund. And so I don't think it would change the parameters around the public school stabilization reserve. It's called PSSSA or something like that, the acronym. He's proposing to double from 10% to 20% the state rainy day fund. So that's another thing that the legislature has to, it is there, has to contend with, because everything comes down to priorities. So the next steps, just real quick, of course, this is just a proposal. As I started with this graphic, I'll end with a graphic. We're looking to make revision for clarity around the proposals, the trailer bills. They take months to develop. So the trailer bills, the detail of the January proposal, expect those sometime in February and March. The May revision trailer bills, expect those very, very close to June because they get modified and updated very quickly. The enacted budget, of course, is signed before July 1st, but expect the trailer bills to go well into August and sometimes even September, depending on the situation. That's why the budget is so complex because everything's always moving on us as well. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions? Senna?
Just a comment. School budgets are nuts. Really is insane. We have first of all, this is a proposal in January. Then the legislature argues and comes up with a May revise, May. Schools have to we have the dread March 15th deadline. Now, with declining enrollment, March 15th is a deadline for us to lay off certificated employees and also classified employees, if I'm now.
Yes.
Didn't used to be, but now we have classified and certificated employees that have to be laid off by March 15th. Prior to us knowing what our next year's budget is going to be. We have an idea, but that could change drastically. Prop 98 was passed. Everybody patted themselves on the back. Yay, we have great funding. It was intended, it is stated as the floor of funding, at least, but it is treated as the ceiling. So when the governor says he gave or feels, believes, states, however you want to say that he gave education $8 billion too much by whose calculation? Too much over the floor, but certainly not too much as far as we are concerned. So we have the wonderful opportunity to make decisions on our children's education without knowing how much money we have to spend on it. And even when we get the final, in the past, we have had changes in September. I remember a year in January where we lost 20% of our funding at school sites. So it is a crazy business that we're in. And we have to make decisions, best guess decisions. So kudos to the business office and HR, because these are the times that try people's souls. Thank you for the info.
Thank you, Trustee Pisano.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, then we move on to item 8C, annual discussion on potential school closure. This is an information item. The governing board holds an annual discussion on potential school closures every January. Like many districts throughout California, GUSD has seen a decline in enrollment since 2016-17. On January 16, 2025, staff will review factors impacting the decline in enrollment, highlighting sustained low birth rates throughout the nation. However, based on the projections for 2025-26, staff will not be recommending a school closure at this time, and Mr. Meza will expound on that.
Thank you, President Fiak, and good evening, Board. Good evening, Superintendent, once again. As President Fiak mentioned, this is an informational item. You are not being asked to take action tonight, but I will be reviewing the birth data and enrollment projections. I believe you saw those in December, but it's an important element to review them in conjunction with this topic tonight, and we'll just discuss the brief next steps. This is something that I always like to share and remind us that the birth rates in the nation are a historically low rate, 2% from 22 to 23. That's just the available recent most data in the nation. And you see the same, if not a little larger drop in fertility in women as well. And then this, I believe I shared not too long ago at prior board meetings. I just couldn't find an updated map. And this is only relevant because in the Western United States, we're in good company. So it's not just California, it's nearby states. And so overall, there's decline throughout the nation, but it's concentrated toward the western of the country. We also might remember seeing this in December from our demographer's report, but that was a long, lengthy meeting with a lot of data. This is important enough that I wanted to bring it back and highlight it again, because when you look at the data, the rate, the days, the fiscal years, excuse me, the 2020 to 2031, when you look at our enrollment, back in 2020-21 was 10,821 total enrollment. Again, this is a snapshot of CBED's first Wednesday in October data, 10,821. And then you look at what's forecasted in 2031, it's like 8,600 or so. That is exactly 16%, or about, I shouldn't say exactly, about 16% of our decline from that period that the graph shows. So we're right on the average of what this is talking about, and this is why. So you might ask, well, why is it? I show you the nation graph, right? Every Western state is declining enrollment, but historically in Gilroy, we're well off a peak of 1,000 births back in 2006. I plotted the additional data point available from 2023 from the California Health and Human Services website. And if the link is there and it actually takes you to the raw data, it's 756. So I think there's only 4 points on this entire line chart that is, below 800. And that's important because we're not going to recapture all 756 students who eventually come in kinder, right? So think of that as you look at the grade level cohort that I'll show in a couple of slides. So our 10-year enrollment history, of course, I believe 10,821. That's the year that I referred just a couple of moments ago. And we're projected to go down by 2031 to 8,600 total students or so, I believe. But the projection for next year is 10,100 students or so, give or take 5 or 6, because the aggregate numbers do change with the rounding up to this table. But basically, a drop of 100 students or so is projected. Now, I will say that this year is far better than what we had anticipated. I think you'll remember saying we had anticipated a drop of about 187 students. The demographers, luckily, they hit it. They were wrong. We dropped by only 40 students this year. So that's why this has to be, and I hope that the board continues to ask for this report on an annual basis. It needs to be an annual basis. It needs to be combined with a 10-year enrollment forecast looking forward, because that's the only way to actually take a lot of the guessing game out. This is the enrollment projection. Oh my goodness, it's actually lower than I thought. 86 is not 2031. 9,000, there's the number. So if you go 10,821 and you look at 2031 to just match up the data with that line chart, it's 16% decline. But we're going all the way to 2034 because we're looking at a 10-year horizon. And the total enrollment for 10 years from now, basically, from the projection point, it's 8,378 there. But next year, we're looking at a drop of just a little over 100. That's by grade level. By grade level is really meaningful and it's really telling, because if you just start with the kinder class, so that's think of the graph of 750 something kids being born translated to a 500, right? So you absolutely don't get 1 for 1. And then you look at the cohort, elementaries are 600, middle schools are 700, high schools are upper 800s. So what happens as those seniors, because we don't have a class of 1,000 anymore, you can see that clearly here. The last class of 1,000 was last year's seniors, or the senior class before, and now, yes, last year's seniors were 916, I believe, this year. It's projected to decline to 890. So as this moves forward a year, we're going to continue to shrink. So it is not going to catch us by surprise. Paul and I have been watching this together for a while. So expect the footprint to continue to shrink because the births aren't there. It's just not happening. It's not just Gilroy. It's not Santa Clara. That's why I share the map of the whole nation with you. Specifically, this is the projections by site. I thought it'd be meaningful to do it by site, given the context of the informational item. I want to highlight that our whole goal last year to balance the elementaries and shifting the DI from Las Animas to Glenview. Las Animas to Glenview, I'm sorry. I said the other site because it's right below Las Animas. It did work. It achieved the intended consequence of leveling Las Animas, because Las Animas was expected to grow 40, 50, 60 every single year. And we would have seen a similar decline in Glenview. So now they're stabilizing, which was exactly the point, to balance the elementary sites, which I believe we achieved by doing that. And then there's that 104 in total from the specific enrollment point of 10,204 this year. So we're looking at 104 or so anticipated drop in next year, with the specific enrollment projections there. But mainly, importantly, we're not recommending a school closure this year. ADB, Antonio Del Bono, was closed, and that process takes about 2 years. So we do keep that in mind on every single time we come here with a recommendation, that we're looking far into, with that lens, that it takes 2 years of when the board gives authorization to start that process, to fully implement it. So, any questions? Yes, Trustee Baker.
See, okay, there we go. I wanted to go back to that number, the decline of the 40 students this year, and clearly the demographers had it very wrong at 187. So could you explain the large discrepancy there, or the reason behind why they might have missed their mark?
Yeah, demographers, they hit the nail in the head, I think, in TK. I think one of our well, the only charter school we have, had a waiting list that threw us off by 40 or so. So that even would have been 80 instead of 40. But there are multiple factors. Families move. There's multiple factors. Projections are, an art and science put together, but they haven't been this off. This particular demographer firm haven't had that large of a variance. And that's why I think it's important to annually look at this. They are almost 100% right on TK, which is hard to do. It's strange that they missed the mark overall. TK the prior year was right on the money, and that, you could argue, is the hardest grade to predict. Everything else is pretty steady. This year, I think a combination of instability in surrounding districts, perhaps parents were looking at us and enrolling with us and staying with us. That all plays a role.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mesa.
Thank you.
Next up, item 8D, monthly district cash flow update, December 2024. This is an information item. Kimberly Smith, Director of Fiscal Service, will present the monthly district cash flow update to the governing board.
Good evening, Board President and board members. So I'm bringing to you our monthly cash flow update, and I wanted to just give a little bit more detail. So this cash flow that we bring to you every month is the general fund. So this is anything in unrestricted and restricted general fund. And the July through December is based off of actuals. And then January through June is based off of our best projections, and this is related to the first interim budget numbers. So if you look at December's column there, you have a beginning cash balance of a little over 72.3 million. The cash inflow, so cash that we brought in, revenue that we brought in, was a little over 24.3 million. The cash outflow is all of our expenditures, including payroll. So that's a little bit over about 15.8 million. And if you go down to the bottom, you'll see there that we have the payroll for certificated, classified, and the employee benefits for all in a different, summing that up. So 11.8 million or so is part of that 15.8 million on the top. Then you have your net increase or decrease, and that's just the difference between your monthly, what you brought in that month and what you paid out that month. So we actually have an increase due to the fact that we brought in 24.3 and we spent over 15.8. The prior year transactions down there, that negative 23,012, that is all of our PYRs and PYLs, our prior year receivables, our prior year liabilities, and our suspension accounts that are reconciled on a monthly basis. And so then it leaves you with an ending cash balance in December of almost 81 million. And then you'll see that for January, we're projecting about the same. And just to point out a couple different things. So you may ask why, if you look down at the bottom between the certificated payroll and the classified payroll and the employee benefits, if you look July through May or so, it's pretty even. It's got a nice trend. But in June, you'll see the 8.8 million in benefits. That's due to the fact that we have a STRS on behalf, and that's an obligation that we have to book now. And so for this year, for 24-25, right now, that STRS on behalf amount is estimated at about 5.4 million. So that's why it's increased there. It's an end of the year closing entry. And then the last column after June is your accounts receivable and accruals. So that's where, when we don't get all of our funding in exactly in June, I set up those PYLs and PYRs. The PYLs are prior year liabilities for, say, for example, we have services that were rendered in the 24-25 year, but we're not going to get an invoice until August or September. I have to set that up so that it hits the correct year. So that's just all a part of our best estimate and in closing the books. And it'll change again when we get ready to do second interim, which we bring to you in March. And this is just another way of looking at the money coming in and the money going out. Just a different way of looking at the numbers there. Any questions at all?
Trustee Moreno?
If you can go back a couple slides for me,
I got to figure out how to go back.
one more, please,
Okay.
right there.
Uh-huh.
So if I, and I may have this wrong because this is not my,
No worries.
if we end the year at 62 in June,
Hmm.
that's the estimated 64, 62.
Mhm.
And we started this July with 76, am I assuming that we're 14 million, we're starting $14 million below where we were this year?
Yeah, so it all depends on what type of programs we have and when we get our cash. For example, a lot of our ed relief funds from COVID, which was close to, I'd say about 35 million in the general fund, really beefed up our cash because we got a lot of the money in, forefronted. And then as that starts to go away, we spend that money, our cash is going to go down. We also, it depends on when our state aid revenue comes in. It comes in, it's got a different schedule. It starts off with 5% of our principal apportionment in the first couple months, then it goes to 9%. And then at the end, when P1 is certified, they do an adjustment and they true up the balances. It depends on, all the different type of programs that we have. And some of the programs are, the money is up front. For example, our learning recovery grant, which is in this pot of money. We've got all that money already, but we have not spent close to 11 million of it, or no, actually, I think it's around 8 million now. So, but we have all of that money already sitting there. So it just depends on the different type of programs that you're looking at every year. But yes, we started out with 76.1 or so. That's what we ended with last year. We had a lot of that money from ed relief. We are no longer, we've spent all that at the end of September. And so our best projections are stating that, probably, hopefully, end up around 62, 63. And that'll change as I do second interim and as I go, forward with the cash flow. Mhm.
Trustee Fasano?
You explain what P1 is?
P1 is our attendance. It's one of our reporting periods, and then we do P2, and then we have P annual. So it's our ADA.
And what is ADA and why is that important?
Average daily attendance, and it's important because that builds our revenue. You're questioning me tonight, aren't you, Ms. Paceno?
We have 3 new board
Yes,
members.
that's
so-
why I wrote a lot more notes, just in case you guys were going to ask me something that I haven't looked at recently, But yes, a lot of it just depends on the type of programs that we have. We look good right now. As we spend the money down, of course, that cash flow is going to go down.
And P1 and P2, we have no control over. So one more variable that is the basis of the money that we get.
Correct.
And we're one of only, I just found out, one of only 7 states, I think, that gets money based on ADA. Everyone else, gets a
Yeah.
set amount. Think how much money we would spend on staff alone if we didn't have to calculate ADA for for budget issues. That's kind of crazy.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on to item 8E, resolution number 2425-18, Safe Haven for All Gilroy Unified School District Students. This will be an action item, and Dr. Anisha Munshi will present the resolution.
Thank you, President Fayak. This evening, I would like to bring this resolution to the board. This resolution is intended to reaffirm the Gilroy Unified School District's commitment to ensure equal access to education for all students, regardless of immigration status, to promote inclusiveness, kindness, and respect for all of our students, families, and staff, and to ensure compliance with laws protecting the rights of immigrant students and families included in Assembly Bill 699. As I shared earlier, we trained staff last week. We are hearing from a lot of our families. There's a lot of angst and fear in our community at this point. And as a school district, it's really important for us to reassure our families that our students are safe at school. School is the safest place for them, and every child has the right to learn. And this is our commitment. So I bring to you this resolution tonight.
Do I have any questions? Okay, Trustee Moreno?
Yeah, I assumed because it's 24-25, this is an annual thing? This isn't, is this, oh, it's not?
It's not an annual thing.
Okay.
We passed
Thank you.
a similar resolution in, I'm trying to think, what year? 2021, 17? 17, in 2017. And just based on what we are hearing from our community, we felt it was important to bring a resolution.
Right, so this
such
was
as
more like public-driven, parent-driven, community-driven to have this resolution?
It is based on the feedback we get from
Okay.
our families and community, the larger community. That's why we brought this resolution forward.
Trustee Nelson?
So, I like to take a deep dive into everything because that's what I do. What? So I just want to read some of the things that I found, just 2 paragraphs. In June 1982, the United States Supreme Court issued Plyler versus Doe, a landmark decision holding the states cannot constitutionally deny students a free public education based on immigration status. This is where, this is not in here. The Supreme Court found that any resources that might be saved from excluding undocumented children from public schools were far outweighed by the harms imposed on society at large from denying these students an education. So I thought it was important to also include that, at least not in writing, but at least have it out there. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Del Bono?
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward. That second, or that next paragraph, it's the 5th one down. I would like consideration of just one word change. It says, whereas the Gilroy Unified School District Board of Education embraces the diversity of our students and families and the rich language and cultural assets they bring to, it says our district, and I would like a consideration of the word being changed to the district. And strongly supports and encourages the participation of all parents and families in our schools, in the schools. So just the consideration of changing the word our to the. I think the word our suggests it's ours and people come to it, like we're letting them in, versus the word the, which means it's, to me, suggests more of a shared, it's ours, collectively ours. That's just my thought. And ask for consideration to change the word.
Yes, Trustee Fasano?
Why we have 7 people with 7 different viewpoints. The, to me, is not as personal, and our, to me, is more inclusive. So I feel the opposite of, our is like our 7. Our, to me, is the community. So That, to me, feels more inclusive than the.
Any other comments?
So I guess I would also then want to look at the word they bring, brought, assets brought. I don't know. I just have, I mean, nothing really needs to change unless others feel like it should change. I'm just looking at it and it just, as I'm reading it, something just strikes me as not the way I would like it stated or hope that would be stated.
What happens when you get educators on the school board? That's great.
Trustee Nelson.
I'm okay with our, it's like, it's all of us. It's all of us. Our, it's yours, it's mine, it's ours. I'm okay with our.
Any other questions or comments regarding the resolution? Seeing none, do I have a motion? This is going to be a roll call vote. Yes, Trustee Nelson.
Sorry. There's a typo on page 3, sorry.
3, 1, 2, 3.
And I did have it, sorry. Yeah, statutes. Third paragraph down, various legal statutes, what? Statutes.
Do you see it, Lucy? Can you
Understanding
mark
various
it,
legal
please? Okay.
statutes.
Lucy's
Is it
noted it,
statutes?
so.
Okay.
So Lucy has noted that.
I have no idea. Okay.
Yeah. That would be.
Where are we reading? I can't even find it. Okay. Oh, it's statuses, as it's a plural, like status of
status.
people.
Okay,
Statuses.
statuses.
Like, what are their status?
Statuses. Okay, whatever.
Who's the
No, it's
English
not
major in the
okay,
room? Do we have an
statuses.
English major in the room? Melanie?
Okay, status, okay, sorry.
Good.
Sorry, my fault.
Melanie says it's good. She's the English major in the room,
Status,
so
okay.
we'll take it.
Okay, and the question at the bottom of page 3, number 6. If parent and or students have questions about their immigration status, school personnel shall not refer them to ICE, but should refer them to community-based and legal organizations that provide resources for immigrant families and families facing deportation. Is this going to fall on the counselors at the secondary school, the counselors and ACs, and, school personnel shall not refer them to ICE, but, so who are the school personnel? Or everybody, it's going to be the counselors and ACs? Who
All
is
the
it in-
people that were trained last week. So
Okay.
it's our front office staff, anybody that's sitting in the front office, anybody that deals with enrollment, our counselors, academic counselors, they were all here last week. And already, children have a lot of protections, even right now. It is the policy of the district that unless somebody shows up with a court order, we do not share information, or we do not just hand over children to anybody that shows up. So there are already a lot of protections, but this is just an added layer. The staff that got trained last week, the county resources, there's several other resources that people know who we can refer our families to, so that they can be advised.
Okay, and I do have, sorry, on the back. We're gonna distribute copies of this resolution to all school sites. Is this gonna be posted in the office? How else will it be communicated to everybody? We heard somebody say, that
Very
something
good
wasn't
question.
translated appropriately. How
So
else is it gonna be communicated to the community?
Once the board approves it tonight, my newsletter is going out tomorrow to all our families, and it will be included in that as well.
Okay, so is this gonna just be Parent Square? Because not everybody looks at Parent Square. Can it be posted?
So it'll be posted on our website. It'll be sent out with a newsletter. We also can send it out in Parent Square. We can post it in the office. It's a resolution. Anyway, the other thing is it'll also, at our next ELAC and DLAC meetings that are coming up, we had shared with Nicole that this should be shared with families, parent clubs.
And it'll be translated?
Yes.
Would there be consideration, because not all of our families have access, online access? Would we be able to print it and put it in every child's, like for the elementary school and?
Melanie and I can work this out. So yeah, we can talk about how we will ensure that all our families receive a copy.
Thank you.
And have the students been educated about no bullying based on perceived status? Has that been emphasized?
So that's part of our bullying training that happens with staff already.
Right.
And, when staff, especially in secondary, when they go out and talk to students, we talk about bullying and what the expectations are on our campuses. So that's a board policy in itself in our district.
Okay. And I looked on the website for GUSD and it says immigrant-related services is one of the categories, but it took me a second. Where's the Spanish? Where is it? I was looking up here and it's down here. It just took me a minute to figure out where it was, that's all. The translate, because it had translate, but then it
Melanie, can you
clicked on
can you
translate
come
and
up,
nothing
please?
happened. So then I looked down here, oh,
Thank you. Pending board, the board passing the resolution tonight, information on that immigration page will be updated tomorrow. That's FPM requirements. And so we're going to just add some additional information about immigration to that part of the website.
I'd be curious for somebody who's a tech idiot like me, approaching the website and trying to find where the Spanish portion is. That's all.
So we have been working, Paul's been working with legal counsel, and Melanie she probably already met Paul today, but they have been reviewing our website as well to see how can families have more access. So we are working on that currently. Paul, do you want to come and share a little bit more about the work we've done?
Thank you. So I believe it was in 2016 when the first assembly bill passed, very similar to what California is doing now. So when those actions happened, we did a full review of our entire enrollment policy, not only from the language that's delivered in it, but also does it comply with existing law? And are we asking for things maybe we don't need and shouldn't be in records? So we were fairly confident in 2016 that things were solid, but just in case, we had legal do a full review and audit of existing items. The good thing about the enrollment process specifically is it doesn't depend on auto translation services like a website. And so all of those documents are translated by a translator specific to make sure that the translation is accurate. Whereas an auto translation service through a website might not be perfect. It's great, right? Because it does create dynamic translations, but for enrollment documents, we need to be very accurate and very transparent. So those are already in our system. We got our full audit from our legal team, I believe it was yesterday. And so we're reviewing that. We'll update all of our documents, very few findings, but things we can improve. So we'll work on that as well.
Trustee Paceno, did you have a question?
Melanie, you mentioned FPM requirement.
I believe it's federal program monitoring, and Nicole Pearson in our specialized programs oversees federal program monitoring, FPM, for the whole district. And part of the requirements are making sure that the website is accessible and includes required language on it for families who are looking for resources.
Thank you
for asking.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions regarding the resolution? Can I entertain a motion?
Move approval?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, sorry. Roll call.
The resolution.
Jennifer Del Bono,
Yes.
Twin Fayek,
Yes.
Gabriella Kim,
Yes.
Kenny Moreno,
Yes.
Michelle Nelson,
Yes.
Linda Paceno,
Yes.
Hanshu U. Baker. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're on to item 8F, 2025 Board Member Committee and School Assignments. This is an action item. Members of the Board of Education are assigned to school sites and committees on an annual basis. At the December 19th annual organization meeting, board members were asked to send requested changes to assignments to me, and based on the information that I received, I try to accommodate as many people as I can. Not everyone got what they requested. But you've received the assignments, and if you have any questions or comments, please do so now. Yes, Trustee Baker.
Can't hear my loud voice? All right. So I'm on the California School Board Association. So do I reach out to them and let them know, or is that already facilitated for me? Okay.
They will.
Oh, they'll reach out because my name's already been, that's what I needed to know. So my name's already been shared with them?
So we will share your name with them, and then you'll start receiving the emails and the meeting invites.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Trustee Nelson.
What?
Look at that smile on her
We've been
face.
waiting.
Okay. I just want to ask if everybody else is pleased.
Can I ask the intention behind the question?
Without revealing too much, I was rather surprised at one of the sites I was assigned. And I better not say any more.
So you were surprised by one of your assignments, okay? And
I'll try it. But I was very surprised. Oh, yes. No, you know what I'm talking about.
I think I'm not, like, this is going over my head.
Well, based on comments I've made and based on history
Oh.
in the district, I was quite surprised, but I will try.
Well, I think that's where I was, so Ms. Trustee Pacino shared. I would like your expertise to take a look and get your feedback. Yes, Trustee Del Bono.
I have two things. I know that with restorative practices, right, people tend to be happier, more satisfied when things are done with them, right, versus to or for them. And I'm wondering if like a rationale, because that sounds like it's very satisfactory to you, that rationale. I wonder if that could be shared in the future, just so that we understand your intention or your thinking behind our assignments, and just so there could be more satisfaction with that, right? But the thing that I wanted to address was in the email that I sent. I mentioned in our training with legal representation for the new board members that I do get a little bit confused with the Brown Act, because I see a lot of questions coming prior to the board meeting that I wonder if we should just be talking about here. And so when I see a question, it goes to everyone, and then there's a response that's in depth that feels like, so if that's satisfactory to everyone, have we now just had a discussion offline that we should be having here? And so I'm just still trying to get the process and understand, because to me, that feels like we were all in violation of the Brown Act when you said you wanted to bring it up here, but we got a response online.
But the response did not require the board as a whole to make a decision.
I'm just wondering about whether or not we should just have the discussions here.
So for any board agenda item, whether it was answered offline or not, you're always, as a trustee, welcome to discuss it and ask the same question in public. And sometimes we do that because we feel that this is important information that the public should know about. So there's no violation of the Brown Act because there was no discussion amongst all of us to make a decision. So, and when questions are asked, it's not sent to the full board, it's sent to the executive board. But when they're answered, it is sent to the full board so that they know what questions were asked and what the answers were, so that you can make a more informed decision here in the public.
Is that okay? Yeah, so then I guess I'm just not understanding why we can't do that here, why we shouldn't be just doing that here.
You can do that here, is what I'm saying.
But if, let's say everyone, could it end in the email and then never come here? And so people don't even
Yeah.
hear the thought process? And I wonder about that.
Yes, trustee Paceno.
The other thing is we have to be conscious of what all of us, collectively and individually, believe warrants a discussion in public. So there are some things that are nitty-gritty that the public could care less about, and it doesn't impact staff or students. So that's, and it's a weight game. And so if you believe that it's something that's important, bring it up and talk about it. And if it's answered in an email and no one brings it up, then no one thinks that it warrants being discussed in public, I guess. Does that make sense?
So for instance, I had a question about one of the consent items. It was answered and then sent to everybody. So the answer was fine. So I thought, okay, I don't need to bring it up again. It was resolved. What I said earlier about the GFP, you know, I worked for the district for 39 years. And I don't know of one single instance where a teacher was asked for input for the para's performance. I think that's important for people to know that. So I did it in email, I did it again here. This one, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about why I asked them a question about if anybody happy, everybody happy. But I wanted it out there, so I wanted the rationale, and the board president responded, but I thought it was important to bring it out to the public as well. But we can't have serial conversations. I can call one person or two people, but we don't want to make any decisions. We don't want to have a conversation with all 7 people, except right here, or back.
Actually, just a correction, even conversations about business matters. I think our legal counsel, when they trained new trustees last week also, you have the daisy chain reaction. What you think is a conversation about a business matter, which is on the agenda with one person, and then that person may have that with the next person, and that person that is a Brown Act violation, which is why the agenda items, which are the business items, must be discussed in public. They cannot be, that's the Brown Act violation, where then you are sharing or discussing your opinion with a colleague who then might meet another person for coffee, and then they start the same conversation. 4 people end up talking about the same item. That's a Brown Act violation. So not knowing who you're going to talk to or who that person is going to talk to next, what our legal always advises is business matters should be discussed in front of the public. If you agree, whether you disagree, whatever your opinion is, this is the place to discuss it. Because otherwise, when you discuss it in private, you could be influencing, and that's what I heard again from Mary. I've heard this many times. What she said is, when you have a discussion and you share your opinion, you could be influencing that person's perspective. And then they go and talk to the 3rd person and the 4th person. That's a Brown Act violation right there. Versus all of you in front of the public having a conversation and then coming to some consensus.
I'm happy.
Any further discussions, comments?
So trustee Del Bono, is that okay?
Well, I see that this is on a board agenda, action item. I think questions about it, you didn't ask a question, you just said you were going to be addressing it in the board meeting publicly. And large email came out to everybody, and I'm just thinking that that should wait for here. I think that's what I'm saying. I believe that that should be public versus on email.
Can I just say, so I
Trustee
think what you're asking is, it would have been appropriate for Twin to say, read into the public her response, is what you were basically asking for,
We'll have it,
here at this time,
We'll look forward to the, yeah.
right?
Yes, I was thinking that it would be appropriate to say, I look forward to the conversation at the board meeting in public.
Trustee Nelson did ask a question. You wanted to know what the rationale was. Yeah, so I answered. And again, if you wanted that discussion here, you could have asked the exact same question and we would have had a discussion.
Sometimes I will say, heads up, I'm going to ask this question. So I gave heads up, I'm going to ask this question.
Yeah.
Because I gave this one a lot of thought.
So trustee Del Bono, do you want to ask a question?
I did ask my question. My question to the president, and I CC'd you and Dr. Munshi, was, is this more appropriate, this was response, to be held in public at the board meeting versus in email? And that was my question, and I brought it up again today. I've heard responses, and I think moving forward, I'll just be very curious about how we're adhering to questions about board agenda items for clarifying questions versus discussion prior to the board meeting, because I think we should be having the discussions here.
And there's a difference, so, but thank you, trustee Del Bono, for stating that. So the Brown Act violation, it pertains to this body, right? So for example, when staff, we send you information and we send it to all of you, that's not a Brown Act violation because they're just sharing facts. And what I've always said is, and even our legal counsel is, do not don't copy all with a comment about what you believe about that information, right? So you send it to the executive committee, who then, again, I send it out to staff and we do it. But anything that comes from us, that's not a Brown Act violation because we are sharing information. But I like the idea, and maybe moving forward, that's what we can do, is any conversation between this body here, we just bring it here. Any questions that you have? If you want to tell them ahead that I will be asking this question, that's great, but just ask it. And that way you can have a discussion here, right? So.
Trustee Baker.
I don't want to belabor this topic any longer. I'm looking at the clock here and we still got a long agenda. I really appreciated what Trustee Pisano had said, and really looking at and weighing what is important to bring up in public and in the interest of others versus what is it just, back and forth stuff that we need to clarify that's not necessarily, public information, or there's no real benefit to it. So, but I totally understand. And I think as the three of us kind of continue to understand the norms and how these are done, it might get easier. But I certainly would not want to sit here and discuss why I was selected on this assignment as opposed to that assignment. And I don't think it's really in the benefit of the public to really sit here and hear us kind of hash that out. So I think we just have to use good professional judgment. And I'm not suggesting that we're not here, but I think we really, for me, that's what is very clear. Is it really to the benefit of the public? I know just got like maybe one person out there. Well, not the staff, but
Staff too.
But are you interested in hearing about us hashing out why I got on this committee versus that committee? But yeah, but I do agree.
This is
The Brown Act
Maribel.
is
She's a
very-
director of IT, so yes, she's an employee.
But the Brown Act is there's a lot of like grayness in it. And I mean, a lot of gray areas and some of it sometimes feel like it's left up to interpretation, but yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, trustee Nelson.
Bottom line, it's not random. There is some reasoning behind it, although I just, so I got one thing out of the 4. Other people got more. So it's, Yeah, it's to expose people to something new, even though I've been here forever, so nothing's new. So it's to give people a flavor for the district, but this doesn't really mean a whole lot because basically, your obligation is to go to back to school night and open house and a couple of events, whoop-de. You know, I've always asked for the Monday memo from all the schools, so, so I see what's going on district-wide. So it, bottom line doesn't mean a whole lot, but I was just curious as to if everybody was happy. That's it. Thank you.
So
I'll move approval, I guess.
thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll say.
I think we've got 3
All in
seconds.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Yeah. All right. We are on to 8G, the 2025-2026 Gilroy Unified School District Local Control Accountability Plan Mid-Year Review. This is an information item. Jean Wells Southland, Director of Educational Services Elementary, and Sonia Flores, Director of Educational Services Secondary, will present this information item.
Good evening, President Fayak, Vice President Paceno, trustees, and Superintendent Munshi. This evening, we are pleased to present the mid-year update on our Local Control and Accountability Plan, fondly known as the LCAP. As you know, the LCAP is a critical tool that outlines our district's goals and actions to support student success with a focus on equity and meeting the diverse needs of all students. The LCAP is the school district's plan prepared in collaboration with its stakeholders. It describes actions that will be taken and how funds will be spent to provide high-quality educational programs. The LCAP aligns with the state's required 8 priorities, which are student engagement, student achievement, school climate, basic services, Common Core standards, access to a broad curriculum, parental involvement, and student outcomes. The mid-year report is a requirement for all school districts. The purpose is to provide updates on the progress toward achieving the goals outlined in the LCAP. The mid-year review is part of our continuous improvement process to evaluate key metrics to see how the district is progressing towards achieving its LCAP goals, ensuring that expenditures align with the LCAP goals and actions, early identification of actions that may need to be refined or modified based on mid-year data analysis, and it allows us to gather input from students, parents, teachers, and community members to inform future LCAP development. This process helps to ensure accountability and transparency in how the district resources are being utilized to improve student outcomes and address equity across the district. The LCAP and the multi-tiered system of supports are interconnected in our efforts to support all students to address academic, behavioral, and social-emotional needs. The MTSS framework and the LCAP complement each other by creating a systematic, data-informed approach to student support. Together, they guide our efforts in aligning and monitoring our efforts to deliver high-quality instruction and services to students and families. The image of the house can be a helpful visual for understanding how our system and tiers of support are interconnected and build a strong framework to guide our collective work. Just as our house needs a solid foundation to stand strong, so do our district programs. The LCAP and interconnected frameworks like MTSS and the English Learner Roadmap are foundational elements that provide a comprehensive, well-constructed plan to meet our district's goals and priorities to ensure that we have the necessary support for students, family, and staff to thrive and survive. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Flores.
Thank you and good evening. As a reminder, Gilroy Unified's LCAP is built around 5 overarching goals that are aligned with the 8 state priorities. As we entered a new 3-year LCAP cycle this last year, we developed these goals and actions through community partner input and undertaking a data-driven needs assessment. As you will see throughout the LCAP, actions align to identified priorities and metrics have been established in order to measure the impact and effectiveness of the actions. I want to highlight that the state recently added equity multiplier funding as part of the LCFF allocations. The LCFF Equity Multiplier is a state funding program providing additional funds to school sites meeting non-stability and socioeconomically disadvantaged student thresholds in the prior year. Considered a separate state funding source, other state funds allocated outside of LCFF entitlement, equity multiplier funds are used to implement evidence-based services and supports for students at eligible school sites and address student groups that have lowest performance level, i.e. in the red on the California dashboard on one or more state indicators. The California Department of Education determines which schools are eligible for the funds each year based on these factors. School districts receiving equity multiplier funds must include an LCAP goal specific to those allocated funds, which is why we have a separate LCAP goal focused on improving outcomes for students at Mount Madonna High School.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. So when you hear me say the general fund, the local control funding formula, this is right out of the local control funding formula calculator. When we say the general fund, we're primarily focused and talking about this $130.6 million. It's our operational revenue, most of which, of course, is allocated on the base with adjustments to the grade span adjustment for the lower and high school grades. Supplemental funds and concentration funds add to like 17.6 million. This does vary every year. Most of that is about 13.4 million. Most of it is supplemental. So you can see the graph. The wider, the higher the numbers, and the narrower, the smaller the number. And concentration funds are roughly about $4 million this year. All in total is 130.6 million. And the add-ons, what they call the add-ons, those are old categoricals that used to be restricted, like the ELOP, for instance, once upon a time, but haven't changed since 2012 to 13. That means that those the state basically took a screenshot of the allocations then going all the way back to 12 and 13, and those allocations have remained frozen in time. And so they call those add-ons. They don't get adjusted. It's just simply there. And they don't grow. So this is what the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, gets impacted. The COLA impacts the base. It increases the base by that 2.43%, et cetera.
So this mid-year update focuses on the LCAP allocations and expenditures to date, and not the expenditures from our one-time funds. And even though those one-time funds contribute to meeting the goals outlined in the LCAP. Here you see the LCAP allocations as well as what has been spent and encumbered to date. On the following slides, we will review some of the substantial actions we have taken to meet our LCAP goals, as well as some of the greater costs associated with meeting our LCAP goals from our LCAP allocations. Each goal reviewed in this presentation also includes metrics we can currently report on to demonstrate our progress towards our goals. LCAP Goal 1 is to create rigorous and innovative learning spaces that deepen students' conceptual understanding so that students achieve successful post-secondary outcomes. Our actions around LCAP Goal 1 include a focus on college and career readiness, or Action 1.1, educational technology integration, or Action 1.2, evidence-based instructional practices, or Action 1.3, district-level professional development, or Action 1.4, and certificated coaching, mentorship, and support, or Action 1.5. This chart provides a snapshot of our current progress towards our academic goals in comparison to last year. I want to highlight that in the LCAP, we use a lot of summative data, such as CASP scores. And along the way, we want to see what are some of the summative data points, or I'm sorry, the formative data points along the way that we can measure progress towards those bigger CASP state assessments. So this year, we see some promising growth with our iReady data at the elementary level. And the diagnostic shows that 36% of our students are on grade level, which is the same as our 2024 CASP scores, but we see some growth from last year at 31%. We're including the semester 1 pass rate for Math 2, as that's also a frequent indicator for success with regard to graduation rates. And this year's 79% is the same as last year's 79%, consistent with our pre-pandemic Math 2 pass rates. I want to note that our highest rate pre-COVID was around 81%, so we're still working diligently to bring those numbers up and to support our math department at our high schools to continue that positive growth, as we've grown from 74% in 2022. This year, we started to track our teacher release days focused on instruction, data, and curriculum alignment. So far, we've had 64 release days. Tallying teacher participation shows 500 teachers, though that number is a little misleading given that several teachers have had multiple days of training and release time. Further, we have increased our district walkthroughs at sites. Last year, we had our one large LCAP walkthrough, and this year we've restructured how we visit our sites. So far, our educational services and student services teams have conducted 50 formal site visits, which still does not include our team's formal visits scheduled for the spring. The intention of these visits is to see how our various district-wide initiatives are being implemented across the school districts in the classroom and every day. Here you see the actions, again, labeled as 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, et cetera, where we've taken as a school district to meet the overarching LCAP goal of creating rigorous and innovative learning spaces. To prepare students for college and career opportunities, we have made quite a few changes by implementing AVID and electives across all 3 middle schools, which includes visual and performing arts electives thanks to Prop 28 funding. We've also benefited from Prop 28 funds to expand the arts at the elementary level. We hired a work-based learning and career partnership administrator who is building relationships with our local businesses and with our community college to strengthen pathways beyond high school for our students. That work is also tied to the graduation committee that has been convened just this year to review the newly added state requirements of financial literacy and ethnic studies and how to fit all of those new requirements into the students' 4-year diploma track. We are also formalizing our district's plan for the alternative pathway to a diploma for qualifying students with disabilities. And we've expanded our partnership with CalSoap, where CalSoap is now present at Christopher High School. As for EdTech integration, we continue to provide professional development for TK through 12th grade teachers, especially through Apple Professional Learning with iPad implementation at lower elementary levels. And our upcoming district-wide professional development day with sessions around artificial intelligence and leveraging the expertise of our EdTech instructional specialists. We're reconvening the EdTech committee this year to reimagine EdTech integration across the district, which includes policy building around the ever-changing EdTech landscape. And with a focus on evidence-based instructional practices, our team has increased classroom walkthroughs, as previously mentioned, to gauge the implementation of various evidence-based instructional initiatives, from Hegarty at the elementary level to cooperative learning strategies at the secondary level, and even fidelity of our curriculum adoptions. Our department's work also includes providing teacher release time and facilitation around revising existing curriculum maps, which includes formative assessments and benchmarks. We've mentioned some of the district-led professional development, such as Kagan Cooperative Learning, but we've also included PLC training through Solution Tree to administrators and their leadership teams. We continue providing professional development around graphic organizers and universal supports, de-escalation techniques, and inclusion in compliance with federal law. Our LCAP dollars continue to fund district TOSA positions for English learner support for elementary math, as well as period releases for instructional specialists in the area of math and science, EdTech, and AVID, to name a few. We also continue to fund a special education program specialist to provide instructional support for teachers, and we continue to provide site-based mentorship to new teachers. Again, for each of the LCAP goals, we're highlighting our big expenditures to date. This includes $50,000 for new curriculum training and support, Thinking Maps professional development, salaries of our instructional specialists, EdTech, and software purchases, as well as the cost for substitute teachers and professional development and release days. Now I'll pass it to Jean.
LCAP Goal 2 is about maximizing resources that provide equitable student support. Our actions around LCAP Goal 2 include a focus on equity and inclusion, assessment, data, and accountability, language and literacy for English language learners, and expanded learning opportunities through acceleration and intervention. This slide highlights some of the impact of our equitable supports we've had so far this year. Specifically, our reclassification numbers are up from last year. Last year, we had reclassified 206 students, and this March, we will reclassify 261 students, or 9.5% of our English learner population. Also, increased are the Northeast Evaluation Association measure of academic progress. This is a 9th and 10th grade reading assessment, moving from 53.5% last year at or above grade level in reading to 57% this fall. The STAR Reading Fall benchmark scores demonstrate they were making some progress at this point in the year, with 46% between 2nd and 8th grade of students at or above grade level in reading. That's a slight increase from last year. 320 students have participated in credit recovery courses, giving students more opportunities to complete their high school graduation requirements. Again, these are a highlight of some of the data points we have so far this year. Elementary students are currently completing their mid-year iReady benchmark to measure growth in both reading and mathematics, and we look forward to sharing that at a later date. The first two actions that we'd like to highlight show the work to focus efforts around equity and inclusion and strengthen the use of assessment and data to improve teaching and learning at all levels. This year, we expanded our work with the Santa Clara County Office of Education Inclusion Collaborative Department. All administrators participated in a training this fall on the benefits inclusion brings to all students and the legal requirements to support inclusive learning environments. Our preschool and transitional kindergarten teams also benefited from training this fall, providing them with additional tools and strategies to support students within their classrooms. Universal screening for foundational literacy skills was conducted in all K-2 classrooms. Teachers administered a short assessment to help them understand the current strengths and skill gaps of their students. The state has made this a requirement for the 2025-2026 school year, and later this spring, we'll be presenting more details about this requirement as well as requesting adoption of one of the state recommended screeners. All administrators and some support staff at both the elementary and secondary levels have participated in training provided by Solution Tree to build instructional leadership in leading and maintaining professional learning communities. We have also continued to support the development and use of common formative assessments in math at the elementary level and math and science at the secondary level. These opportunities to participate in site and district-led PLCs continue to strengthen our instruction, and we see this translate into improved alignment and student outcomes. Action 2.3 focuses on the language and literacy needs of our multilingual learners. The addition of the literacy administrator this year and her work with our elementary and secondary TOSAs is already having a significant impact on the services provided to students and the systems to improve and monitor our programs supporting our multilingual learners. With the support of our administrator, our TOSAs and support staff like the literacy facilitators and EL specialists, all elementary sites have created a designated English language development plan. Teachers at both elementary and secondary levels have created an English learner class profile, and sites are working on EL action plans to assist in instructional planning and progress monitoring. Our TOSAs are also working with teachers to model lessons and lead professional development as they continue to strengthen the offering of their supports. Alignment is key to a strong Tier 1 instruction. We call it first and best teaching. Teachers from all sites and grade levels have continued the work from last year to create a comprehensive instructional map that integrates literacy across science, social studies, and English language arts. Lastly, I'd like to share one final action from Goal 2, focus on expanded learning opportunities. We have continued to offer tutoring services at selected sites in our after-school programs, as well as offer a variety of alternative learning opportunities for secondary students to continue to work towards a high school diploma. These opportunities include credit recovery options, Virtual Learning Academy, and the Envision Academy. Our expanded learning team has done an amazing job at improving the enrichment opportunities in our Power School programs. They've incorporated math, art, Legos, and technology into the already robust offerings in partnership with YMCA and Youth Alliance. One important element is the inclusion of behavioral and mental health supports during the expanded learning time. The family engagement evenings with 6th Street Art and Legos have been well attended and appreciated by families. This year, we are pleased to offer our Power School program during both the Thanksgiving and holiday break, and we'll do so again in the February and spring breaks, so that students have a fun and safe alternative while school is not in session. This slide highlights some of the larger expenditures coming out of our LCAP Goal 2 funds and are included covering, most of the funds are covering personnel to ensure equitable support for all learners, but we also include data monitoring software, so that's the Cadians, our universal screener, the NWEA map, panorama survey software. On to goal 3. Ms. Polito. LCAP Goal 3 focuses on building inclusive, safe schools that prioritize mental health, social, emotional well-being for all. Our actions around LCAP Goal 3 include a focus on attendance, behavior, climate and culture, family engagement, and wellness. This chart provides a snapshot of our current progress towards our academic goals in comparison to last year. We remain roughly consistent with our attendance rate comparing this year to last year. However, we recognize that our expulsions have increased this year from 8 to 14. Our 4-year cohort graduation rate has also declined, with the understanding that this was the final cohort impacted by COVID during their high school experience. We have expanded the number of wellness centers across our district. Gecka and Elliott were open in fall 2023, but now all 3 middle schools and both comprehensive high schools have opened their wellness centers. We did not see an increase on our student surveys around the sense of belonging, and our survey data remains consistent. Around school safety and supportive relationship also remains steady as well. Okay, highlighted actions to build inclusive and safe schools that prioritize mental health and social well-being of all. We continue to focus on attendance with monthly district level attendance collaborative meetings where we work with our attendance liaisons and community liaisons to support their work as they engage families about the importance of attendance. We also continue to partner with community-based organizations to support attendance efforts. To promote positive student behavior and address discipline concerns on our campuses, we continue partnering with the Santa Clara County Office of Ed, South County Youth Task Force, and NSU, and behavioral health. And we have provided professional development for MTSS implementation and monitoring to our secondary counselors, academic counselors, and administrators. We continue to provide professional development around restorative practices and therapeutic crisis intervention through our district-wide professional development days. We have started piloting a diversion program at South Valley Middle School as an alternative to suspension, and all of our schools are looking at alternatives to suspension. For example, we have partnered with Kick It California and Y Vape to provide counseling to students who are caught vaping on our campuses, and we continue to use Navigate 360 as part of our progressive discipline model. Okay, to strengthen the climate and culture across our sites, secondary schools are focusing on consistently reviewing data around student achievement, behavior, and attendance through the MTSS framework and site-based teams composed of their attendance staff, counselors, ACs, and administrators. Sites continue implementing the social emotional learning curriculum using second step in elementary, Character Strong at some middle school sites, as well as their leadership classes to develop strong community building, social emotional learning lessons, and Character Strong at the high schools. Secondary school participation at the CATA conferences have also provided opportunities for student leadership classes to plan various activities at their sites. We are very focused on increasing parent engagement at the site level, as evidenced by the community resource fairs and site-based family engagement events. Elementary community liaisons attending the Santa Clara County Office of Ed parent involvement meetings. We leverage our partner agencies as we continue to subsidize and facilitate the volunteer clearance process for parents. Okay. And with regard to wellness, we have expanded the wellness centers across the districts. Thanks to the added position of the wellness administrator, position. We can now coordinate support services at all our sites, ensuring that wellness centers are staffed with social workers, social worker interns, and we can strengthen our work with the counselors and academic coordinators as we focus on integrating the MTSS framework across secondary sites. Whoops. Highlighted expenditures. Goal 3 expenditures highlight the staffing costs to meet the actions within this goal. Community liaisons at elementary, middle school climate coaches, SLS coordinators, and middle school counselors, and our administrators. Okay. Oh, I'm going to give it to you, Sonia.
LCAP Goal 4 focuses on providing equitable and high-quality basic services such as materials, staffing, and facilities. To align our reported metrics with what you see on the California dashboard, we're using the state's and federal program monitoring definition of an appropriately credentialed teacher. Last year, we were at 82%, and this year we are at 92%. But again, that huge jump is actually because of the alignment in the way that the metrics are reported. We maintain a 3% as our routine restricted maintenance fund, and we're happy to report that there have been no complaints regarding facilities per our most recent Williams reports. Further, our Common Core and English language development materials are available for all students, and we continue to support our principals with identifying and addressing any needs that arise throughout the year. We continue to ensure all students have the standards-aligned textbooks for their classes, and we continue to pilot and adopt instructional materials per the state release timelines. Specifically, we're piloting chemistry textbooks this year, and we are using new supplemental curriculum in our high school ELD or English language development courses. The salaries and benefits of our certificated, classified, and management positions support our ability to hire, train, and retain highly qualified staff. We believe that maintaining a stable staff has the greatest impact on English learners, foster youth, and low-income students. We are piloting the lower class sizes in grades 1 through 3 through the 26-27 school year, and we continue to provide additional staffing to support students in classrooms across the district. And to ensure the hiring of effective staff, Dr. Winslow and Ms. Vallejos continue to attend recruitment fairs while focusing on hiring effective staff at all levels. With regard to Action 4.4, our district offers an induction program and a peer mentorship program for our new teachers. And as for Action 4.5, to maintain equitable, well-maintained facilities, our Maintenance and Facilities Department work diligently on district-wide roof repairs, upgrading the fire alarm system and light fixtures. And you can see the list here of various facility projects and upgrades that the department oversees throughout the year. You can see here how the supplemental and concentration funds contribute to the hiring and training of effective staff to support our targeted populations, and how our general fund pays for textbooks, training and support for teachers, facilities costs, and staff salaries and benefits. LCAP Goal 5, again, is the equity multiplier goal to support Mount Madonna High School. The equity multiplier funds are to be used to provide targeted support to Mount Madonna High School to further their college and career readiness indicator, English learner progress, suspension rates, and mathematics achievement for the following student subgroups who scored as very low or in the red on the California dashboard. All students, English learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, Hispanic students, and students with disabilities. Mount Madonna has opted to use the STAR reading and math tests in lieu of the MAP reading tests due to the amount of time the MAP test to administer on a short cycle timeline, because Mount Madonna High School students are on 8 cycles. And in comparing fall 2024 data to fall 2023 data, there is some progress in the percentage of students meeting or exceeding on both assessments. Mount Madonna High School's suspension rates has significantly decreased, and the number of students enrolled in CTE or career technical education coursework is increasing thanks to our partnership with Rebecca's Culinary Arts Program and our new agreement with Metro Ed. The actions in LCAP Goal 5 include expanding college and career opportunities for students, increasing instructional technology for differentiated instruction, and progress monitoring and providing resources for Mount Madonna High School's Wellness Center. Thanks to the equity multiplier funds, Mount Madonna High School is continuing its partnership with CalSoap as well as its partnership with Rebecca's Culinary Academy for after-school programming. We are also using the funding to partner with Metro Ed, or Silicon Valley Career Technical Education, where a few students have the opportunity to take CTE classes in the areas of law enforcement, sports medicine and kinesiology, and film and video production. These opportunities will improve the college and career readiness indicator for all students, English learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and Hispanic students who scored again on that very low on the California dashboard. Mount Madonna High School has also utilized its equity multiplier funds to use iExcel, an adaptive software that also supports teachers in monitoring student progress towards proficiency and is aligned with our adopted curriculum. A small portion of the EL Monitor's release is paid out of the equity multiplier funds, as our high schools have started to absorb the cost of the EL Monitor FTE position. This action seeks to address growth in the areas of math and English learner progress, an area of need for several student groups as demonstrated by the red indicator on the California dashboard. Finally, some of the equity multiplier funds have been allocated to purchase materials and furniture to expand the Wellness Center at Mount Madonna High School to support students with counseling and mental health needs. Again, this action specifically addresses the suspension rates of socioeconomically disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, and Hispanic students at Mount Madonna High School. And this slide captures the expenditures and encumbrances to date for the actions we just recently discussed.
In the education world, we have a fifth season. It's called LCAP season, and we have entered it. So if you see by this graphic, November to January is when we have been analyzing the data. We're presenting the information to you. Our next steps in February and March will we begin to draft the revision of our LCAP for the next school year. So we are seeking input from our community partners. We're surveying staff and students and teachers. And so really beginning to look at more metrics, more data to see that do we need to make any revisions to the 3-year plan that we've created. And then April and June will come back to you. You'll approve the LCAP for us. Goes to the County Office of Ed, and they approve it, and then off we go to the new school year. So thank you for listening to our presentation this evening, and now we can take questions if you have them.
Trustees, any questions?
Thank you. That was a very informative presentation. I just had a quick question about, it was in goal 4, highlighted metrics, the Williams report related to the facilities. What is a Williams report? And then how is that data collected? I'm just curious, because I just feel like we always talk about facilities, so I'm just curious why there's no complaints.
Yeah, so William, the Williams Act essentially was a law passed in California to guarantee a couple different things. Facilities is one.
Okay.
Also, teacher vacancies is another. And so Alvaro and I technically work together, and also instructional materials. So there's really 3 branches of the Williams Act. And it's an official process that a parent can petition and formally complain against a district and compel a district to correct something or an action. And so the way we collect that data is based on the number of complaints. And so luckily, as being reported, there's been no formal complaints about those issues. But it's definitely a law. It's a very important law to ensure that those 3 components are satisfied in schools.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trustee Nelson?
A quick question. Kick It?
Mhm.
Is that, I was trying to find it. So it's just texting?
Kick It California. No. So it's actually a program through UC San Diego and Kick It California to actually address teen vaping concerns. And so we have a partnership with Y-Vape and with Kick It California as an alternative means for suspension. We actually learned about it last year, and we went, Ms. Polito and I had sat through a few information sessions, and we went back and forth with the organization. We also introduced it as an alternative to suspension with our principals. And they said, yes, we absolutely want this. And it's a really great program where, if a student is caught vaping and their parents consent, then we can actually connect the students with a counselor who then asks the students questions about, why they're why they've made these decisions. The student then can sit through several lessons that are developed through UC San Diego, Kick It California, and this organization YVAPE. And then the parents also have they can have some sessions with the counselor. And then at the end, there's a follow-up counseling session with the student to hopefully see growth and impact. And then the students are connected to other resources, as are their parents, about how to address vaping and nicotine addiction.
Okay, thank you, because the website just sounded as if they were going to get text messages. How you doing? And
No.
Okay.
It's more involved.
okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Trustee Delabono.
Thank you for the presentation. You guys are working so hard. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on the uptick in the English language learner reclassification rate. That's really good to see. And also the 9th and 10th grade MAP assessment. That's really nice to see that progress. I'm curious, though, if you're getting a sense as to what you can attribute to the increase in those efforts, and then also what we need to get an uptick in the 2nd through 8th grade reading assessment.
I'll speak briefly about the math increase, and we're hoping to continue to see increases in the areas of math and also science. Because we have our STEAM coordinator actually working with our math and science teachers to align the curriculum to come to those common agreements. And then I also think that now, as we're moving in the direction of site-based PLCs, the departments are having really good conversations around what they would like to see with their student, even with their common formative assessments and the data that that's producing for them. But I think that a lot of that curricular alignment makes a difference. And then I'll pass it over to Ms. Wells Southland.
Yeah, and I think when we're looking at the uptick in some of our reading scores, I know it looks like a slow roll, but last year we really weeded through like what were our programs, how are our students performing, and we have some target approaches in especially our elementary, that benefit our multilingual learners and hopefully all students because they're best practices. So we have programs. We use Haggerty, so the Science of Reading, a foundational reading program for our early learners, and then we have phonics for reading in our upper grades. So those are research-based, very structured programs that our students are getting that in-class intervention. We know intervention in the classroom with the teacher in small group is always the best. And I think just really looking at the data and what the needs of the students are, focusing on the development of oral language skills. Really, our EL TOSA and our literacy administrator have made a huge difference just building that understanding of who your students are in your classroom. For many of our sites and teachers, doing that English language profile in their classroom was quite eye-opening to really see, it's not just you have a level 2 or level 3 English learner, but what are their real needs are, and developing those processes as we go. So we hope we're gaining some momentum with all those efforts and really starting to see some of those outcomes improve for students.
Thank you for that. And then for the STAR reading assessment for grades 2nd through 8th, there's a 1% uptick. And I'm wondering, I know you're probably happy to see 1%, but you probably want more than that. We're all hoping for more than that. Is there an idea of what could get us greater results?
Yeah, so when we disaggregate the data, so because that's rolled up 2nd through 8th grade, we're actually seeing greater gains in our 2nd through 5th grade. So they're making some really good progress, and more like in the 3 to 5%, percentage gains. Our middle schoolers are most impacted. These are those kiddos that are, were very young. They're hitting into 6th and 7th grade. And so really needing those interventions around phonics and the basic reading skills. And so I think we're talking and addressing how do we look at those needs and support for those students.
And to that point, all 3 middle schools are actually trying something different at each one of their sites that they feel like maybe this would be a good intervention, maybe this might be a good intervention. And so we're still working to really develop which direction do we want to go as a district, and what is intervention look like for middle school literacy to bring that up in the middle school model. What's also been nice is having the AVID elective for our sixth graders where our teachers can actually focus on some of the study skills and habits to bring up some of the skills of our students. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think also just to highlight, we're really excited about, I mean, I know it's a big challenge to get TK for all, but having our students enter our school system and really encouraging our families to bring their students to our school system. Even in our PK programs, I think we've shared before, we've created a standardized curriculum that's really aligned to the developmental needs. So we're hoping that we can get all students, you know, entering into our preschools, which are amazing. It's like a hidden gem in Gilroy that we're trying to really promote. And then next year, all 4-year-olds are eligible for TK. So I know we want to see really fast results, but we want to do things that are really meaningful and that we know are sustainable and that teachers also feel are really valuable and something that they can integrate well into their teaching.
Yes. Trustee Moreno.
Thank you. Let's go way back to the beginning of this presentation. The local control funding formula, if you don't mind. And it's a pretty simple question. I just don't know how it's calculated. It says here at the bottom that the average daily attendance is 9,750, whatever. But then our enrollment's 10,200. Does that mean about 455 students are not funded?
No, so the local control, in the very simplistic way, the local control funding formula is funded by grade spans. So the base is the same across the state for all kinder students, for all sixth grade students, for all ninth grade students. And there's grade spans adjustments depending on the lower size. So like the elementary gets a grade span adjustment, the high school gets another grade span adjustment. In aggregate, if you were to average out the 130 million.6 divided by our P2, not enrollment, but P2, you get roughly about 13,000 per ADA or so. So that's roughly the number that we average out, but it's very specific to the grade span and demographics play a role. So if there's a student that's English language learner, foster, or coming for a low income, thank you, then we generate additional funds, and that's part of the supplemental and concentration funds. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Del Bono.
Yeah. Last question. Is it possible when we get an update again that we can get that, the breakdown by demographics, like our foster youth and our students with disabilities so that we can really see how they're also performing?
On which data points?
The metrics that you shared here, if there's just an opportunity to see some of those breakdowns?
And we're kind of in the testing window, so maybe once everyone's finished, maybe like iReady, we can look at some of that data and share it in a Sunday report if the superintendent requests that of us. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? And that was an informational item, so thank you very much. We are on to 8H, amendment of contract with Pacific Clinics for behavioral support for Power School for the 2024-2025 school year. This is an increase of $255,750 to the original amount of $154,400, not to exceed $410,150. This is an action item, and Ms. Jean Wells Southland will present.
Yes, good evening. This evening, we're asking for approval of the amendment to the contract with Pacific Clinics so that we can continue with the 5 behavior technicians that are supporting students during the after-school program at sites as needed. So it's all of our elementary schools and all of our middle schools have access to these behavior technicians. We found that they've been really valuable in our program. We weren't sure how it was going to go, so we had only contracted services with them through December through their original quote, but we would like to continue this through the end of the school year.
Questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Gabby.
Any idea if it will be the same technicians staying on? Yes. Okay. Yes. And they've been wonderful.
Good question. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, this is an action item. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, item 8I, new contract with SHC Services, Inc. For staffing of one RSP teacher for the 2024-2025 school year, not to exceed $69,000. This is an action item, and Ms. Polito will, the Director of Student Services, will present.
So good evening, President Fiat, trustees, and Dr. Munshi. I'm here to bring forth to fill a vacancy till the end of the year for an RSP teacher.
Do I have any questions? Can I entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Action or item 8J, new master contract with Heritage Schools, Inc. It's a non-public school for the 2024-2025 school year, not to exceed $225,380. And Ms. Polito.
Yes, so when a student is placed in special education, we have to explore all the continuum of options to see if we can serve the student. This student came with an existing IEP that placed them at this school. So we are obligated to place the student in accordance with their IEP.
Any questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Trustee Nelson.
I have a question. So thank you for the response that you sent me, because this is quite a bit of money. So we're obligated to do it. How can we get out of it if the parents decide they don't like it? Because I know that it wouldn't be for cause.
So it's through the IEP. So when a student has an IEP, after we do our assessments, if a student is coming with an existing placement from another district, we have 30 days to review. So it is our obligation to place them whatever their services are. If a student came with 30 minutes of resource a week, we have from an IEP from a different school, then we would implement what's on the existing IEP, and then we hold an IEP within 30 days when we get to know the student to see if what we're seeing, we would offer the same. Do we think they need more support, less support? So if a student is placed in one of these facilities, we have 30 days to look at the student. There's several resolutions. If a parent doesn't agree, typically they can file what we call due process, or a district can file due process to enforce their offer. And what that means is we with the OAH, Office of Administrative Hearing Judge, we start with a mediation and try to work it out. If not, we go to a hearing, and then it's a judge that determines.
Have you been in touch with this place, the Heritage Schools, to see how open they are to maybe just doing the 30 days and then?
So they are, right, but what would happen is yes, they know the student, again, was placed through a different district. So we've been in communications, and we visit within 30 days. So if we were able to determine that they could come back, then we would work to make that happen.
It'd be terminated without advance notice of both parties. Oh, in writing, so I just wondering how much communication.
We've had quite a bit.
A lot of them. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Can I entertain a motion?
Move approval.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, this is item 8K, new master contract with individual service agreement with Kinship Academy for non-public school for the 2024-2025 school year, not to exceed $150,794. This is an action item. Ms. Polito again.
Yes, so thank you. This is a very similar scenario. The student came with an existing IEP where the student is attending Kinship.
Any questions, comments? Can I entertain a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, on to item 8L, amendment to contract with Solient Health for staffing of 2 paraeducators for the 2024-2025 school year. Total contract amount will not exceed $886,251. The original amount was $542,286. The contract has been previously amended from the original amount to $775,251. This will be the second amendment, adding $111,000, which brings the new total to $886,251. And this is an action item. Ms. Polito.
Yes, good evening. I'm here to bring forth this contract to be able to staff 2 paraeducators till the end of the school year.
Any questions or comments? Yes.
I would like to ask a question, just because I'm not familiar with, with this. Does this mean that each one of these people make $400,000 a year?
No,
I don't know how to read this.
This is adding to the existing contract, and I'm bringing it for $111,000, and that's for the 2 paraeducators to the remainder of the years. The remainder of the year is about $55,000.
So the way I read this, and maybe I'm just not reading it right, is that this contract is with this company for 2 paraeducators to 24-25. The total contract amount will not exceed $886. What is the term of the total contract? How many years or how?
It's just for this year. So the 886 includes other staff that we have
Okay.
through that agency.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions or comments? This is an action item. Can I entertain a motion?
I move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, last one for 8M, amendment to contract with Best Medical Resource Health Services for 1 speech and language pathologist for the 2024-2025 school year. Increase of $84,800 to the original amount of $473,043. Ms. Polito.
Yes, so I'm pleased to bring forth this contract. And coming out of COVID, we struggled with finding speech and language therapists. We always have, but it was an additional challenge. And many of the staff that we were able to hire to provide speech and language services were remote. They did the virtual. And so when we're able to find a in-person speech, we tried to bring them on board. And so we were able to contract with this company that had a very qualified speech and language therapist.
Yes, Trustee Pacino.
Just a nitpicky issue for me. I don't think they are a Spanish speech and language. I think they are bilingual Spanish.
Oh, okay, yes.
Thank you. Just for future.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to agenda item 9. The new contract with Flint Design Building for pre-construction services for district office warehouse project not to exceed $10,000. Mr. Paul Nato, Director of Facilities Planning and Management, will present the contract.
Good evening, President Fayak, Dr. Munshi, and members of the board. This evening, I'll present a quick contract with Flint Builders for the pre-construction services for the warehouse project that we're designing here in this very building. Pre-construction for this particular project will go through the complete bidding process. So we've hired an architect to actually design out what the space is that we want to design. And to get that all bid out, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks between the district and the construction firm to bid that out. What that does, it gives us a dollar amount of what the project will cost us. At that point, the board will decide whether or not to proceed with the project. I will entertain any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Maybe just for the benefit of the new folks, can you, I'm reading the rationale, but what exactly will this warehouse hold, house? It said it's going to convert to office spaces, so what kind of staffing will go in there, I guess?
Sure. So up until recently, our IT department was housed
Oh,
right
that's
next
right.
door. And what we've done over the past few years, actually mostly over this past year, is we've decommissioned our warehouse. We're moving away from warehousing and distribution, which is a very common process now, to a just-in-time inventory. So it negates the need to have leased space next door when we can convert our current space into an IT infrastructure and bringing them in-house and not having to spend leased and rented space.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You bet.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right, we are on to item 10, board reports. Are there any board reports? Yes, no?
Well, a board report would be anything that we did as a board member, right? That
That is
pertains, okay,
correct,
okay.
yes.
Yes, so I have a board report. Let's see, on January 6th, the first day back, there was no students at secondary sites. I visited secondary sites and said hello to Principal Dirks, Padilla, Bergren, Camarena, Aguirre, and Ramos, Camacho Light. And that was good. And then on January 8th, we received training. New board members got training here, and that was also super beneficial. On January 10th, met with President Fiac and Vice President Pacino at coffee, and we chatted about protocol and handbook. And then also, I was able to enjoy one of my favorite days in Rotary today was the speech contest. And so the GECA students, 2 GECA students joined us, and I'm always impressed by the GECA students. Well, all students of this age, this whole generation, I love them, but they particularly were incredible. They made me cry, and I have so much hope for these kids. And so, yeah, we were able to award one of them $100 and the other student $250. And one of them is moving on to the district level speech contest. So it was really exciting.
I do have a quick report from we had the South County Youth Task Force meeting yesterday, and they were able to report on last year's activities. So as some of you may not know, South County has a youth diversion program. So when youth are cited, and this is not, it's school as well as off campuses, then if they fit a certain criteria, they will be referred to this diversion program where their citations or / criminal records will be expunged if they complete the program. So we have been, I am so happy to report that Gilroy actually has numbers to share, where we had 30 youth in Gilroy that were diverted to or referred to the diversion program, and out of the 30, 28 graduated. So it has a really high success rate. When we're with in terms of the immigration response, the county does have an immigration rapid response teams network. And the $5 million was approved by the board to augment immigration service, and this is, I'm sorry, Board of Supervisors, to augment immigration services under the new administration. And they are looking at schools and school link services as a natural connection point to support families. We also have, and supervisor, as we all know, budgets are going to be tight next fiscal year, including the county. But Supervisor Arenas, who is our supervisor, is making intentional decisions regarding equity for South County, because for many, many years, South County has been overlooked by county dollars. So she, through the supervisor's grant program, she's making really intentional decisions to make sure that South County receives more than their fair share of county dollars. And then also the South County Youth Task Force surveyed through Community Solutions. They developed a youth advisory group, and they surveyed 433 students, and they came up with some really, good statistics for us to know. So the top 3 trusted adults were police, teachers, and doctors. So, what we do and what our teachers do have a huge impact on our students' lives. And the top 3 concerns that students are facing right now are school shooting, gun, and gang violence. So we have seen a uptick in gang violence in the last couple of years. And now, because the diversion program has had such a good success rate, they're looking more upstream. So they're looking at the root cause of why they are doing the harm. So there's more preventive and proactive approaches. And part of that is going to be, we have the South County Youth Task Force is piloting at South Valley an after-school open gym program. So it's very similar to the night gym model. And they're gonna, have it after school. And it's gonna provide, positive mentors, pro-social activities, and meals. And they're gonna have it twice a month for 3 hours. They're gonna have 4 adults, 2 school staff, and 2 CBOs. And the difference between the night gym and the open gym is going to be, they're going to be very intentional about what students are going to participate in the open gym. So these are going to be are at promise students versus the night gym anyone can attend. And then the probation department is also collaborating with our 3 middle schools to provide some law-related workshops and presentations. And for this next fiscal year, the South County Youth Task Force has about a $1.5 million budget. Plus they do lots of partnerships, in-kind personnel from the district attorneys, Gilroy and Morgan Hill for staffing, and they served 1,000 students last year. So that is the end of my report. A lot of information was shared.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I was able to do a few things. Attend Coffee and Community. I always enjoy that. Try to go to most of those things. Vaping was a real big topic for the parents. Obviously, we all know what's happening. And really enjoyed that time. Also, I attended my first wrestling match. I've never been. And Gilroy High put on their, I think it was on the New Year's Day, they were playing against, or they were, I don't know the term, it's not playing against, but competing against a few out of state from Utah and somewhere else, I can't remember. But for those who don't know, they take the gym, make it completely dark, and they place a mat in the center with a light that just kind of hovers above it. So it's very focused down. They have a DJ that comes in, plays music, announces, the kids run through, our kids run through this inflatable thing that shoots smoke in the air. It's a very big production. I realized why I never wrestled, because I would die. I can't bend like that. So, but it was really, really great to be there. It was the first time I got to put my badge on. So that was good. I think I'll always remember that. But it was nice to be there. And I got a nice email from AD Adams, just thanking me for coming. And that was very, very nice. But it was super cool. You guys should check it out if you're interested. But it's very entertaining. So that's it.
Thank you. Any other board reports? Okay, so are there any upcoming and new referral agenda items? Yes.
I'm sorry, just very quickly. I went to SPAC, which was a committee that I served on as a parent, and it was a very spirited discussion. I also just want to, is there a place for announcements, or can I say it here? Okay, so some of you may know that I serve on the Santa Clara County Human Rights Commission and the Martin Luther King Luncheon, which is, we always sponsor every year. I have an extra ticket, potential extra ticket. It's a luncheon at San Jose State. I'd like to offer it to any of the board members. If the person that I've already asked says no, I'm supposed to hear back from her by tomorrow, but I don't want it to go, just to go to waste. So if any of you are interested, please reach out to me. And if my colleague says no, then I'd be more than happy to take you and I will drive you there too, so we can carpool. So, okay.
All right, Trustee Nelson, did you have an upcoming and new referral agenda item?
Yes. I had asked in 2024 about this ethics training. Heard anything more about it? We're supposed to have it done by January 1st, 2026.
Yes, and I've talked to our legal, Mary and I, we're working on some dates. We just had so many trainings. We thought it would be a good idea to just space
us a
it out.
break?
So, but she's aware of it. We'll work on it and probably we might do it before a board meeting. So we'll connect with you regarding the dates.
Okay. Also, I was wondering if we could get a follow-up report. I was nervous about this whole shredding. I mean, the digital conversion, I finally got myself a new laptop after 10.5 years with my old one. What?
We can do that. We can provide an update.
But anyway, the Geek Squad was very, very nice. I said, just walk me through it, please. And so they transferred everything, but even they said, make sure that you've double checked that everything on the old one has been transferred to the new one. But I have it for an indefinite period of time, and this was only 30 days, and was everybody happy? I mean, I was very nervous about, but just an update, how did it go? Did anybody say, hey, wait a second, no, I needed that, where are you going? Give me that, Okay. And also, I had asked about a facilities tour down the road again, and you wanted to go just.
I can have Alvaro and Paul schedule something with all three trustees.
Yeah, I would, it's interesting to dole out things and talk about stuff and I've never been to the bus barn,
Yeah,
never been to the
absolutely.
facilities. Actually, I've been there once. But there are so many places that I would like to.
Yeah, we'll schedule something with all three of you. Yeah, anybody, all seven of you, absolutely. We can hop on a school bus.
Okay. So next is announcements. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Thursday, February 13th, 2025. Closed session will begin at 5:30, followed by the regular meeting at 7 o'clock. The agenda will be available on the district's website by 5 p.m. on Friday, February 7th. And unfortunately, there is necessity for us to go back to closed session. So the meeting